What is up, 7-3 fans? Welcome back to another episode of the 7-3 Garage. My name is Brandon. If this is your first time joining us, please be sure to check out some of my other videos so you're updated as to what is going on in this one. Today, I have a small update with the truck. Something that was kind of expected, but not really. I'm going to show you in just a second. Have a very small amount of carnage, but I'm going to give you a whole backstory and some of the information of where we're going to be heading either this week or next week. I got a lot of stuff coming up this week as far as a trip goes for my girlfriend's birthday, so that's kind of the priority this week. But I'm expecting to be either this coming weekend or right at the beginning of next week. We'll have this thing back on the road, so let's get to it. So to start the story, last weekend I was heading to work. It was very early on a Sunday morning, like 6:30, 6:45, and truck was running awesome, felt great, kind of a cooler morning. So it had actually just rained the night before, so the roads were kind of damp, had that kind of weird dryness as well, like they were in the middle of drying up. And truck felt good, so I hopped on the throttle real hard for just a second. Tires spun, didn't hit the rev limit or anything like that. Roll up to the traffic light, truck shaking real bad, idling hard. I'm like, great, I already broke something. Thing's got 800 miles on it. So take it to work. I was able to get it home that evening. Started doing my basic troubleshooting for these trucks. If anyone's messed with these things or tried to do any sort of troubleshooting, they're very finicky. There's a lot of electrical things that can go wrong that will not throw a check engine light. I know if the under valve cover harness becomes unplugged, or if it's a faulty sensor, or even sometimes the injector drive module may or may not throw a check engine light. And I had no check engine light whatsoever, no smoke out of the tailpipe. So went and did all the basic stuff. I checked my ICP sensor to confirm that. I checked fuel pressure. I checked my IPR sensor, made sure that tin nut was still torqued on there, because I know if anyone has ever messed with that before, the solenoid can slide around and cause basically like an intermittent running issue where the truck won't start or it may idle rough. Checked that, everything ended up being fine. Checked my oil level, I checked the reservoir. I did basically every check in the book that you could do. Cam sensor, I ran codes, there was no code stored in the computer. Kind of puzzling. So I've learned from this, and this is just things that I've learned from other 7.3 guys in the past, especially with these trucks, is if you can rule out either mechanical, electrical, start in one end and then work your way towards the other. So I basically ruled out every electrical or sensor issue that I possibly could have and kind of switched over to the mechanical side. So my next move, like I said, was now the mechanical aspect. So get it home, or while it was home, I should say, after I diagnosed all the other stuff or try to troubleshoot as best I could. The next thing I do, what else will cause these trucks to run off, is either an injector problem, aerated oil. If you have an opening somewhere in one of the heads, if an O-ring goes bad, you can aerate the oil and the injectors can get a big gulp of that and they're not very happy. So I did all that stuff. High pressure oil pump, you can have that drive nut come off that gear and you can have an issue with the snout spinning just inside the gear, things like that. I really didn't expect that because I torqued everything. I double and even triple checked all my other stuff when the engine was out and before we went back into the truck, so I really wasn't too worried about that. So the next thing that I thought of was, hey, let's check the valve train, because if these trucks, really any engine, you have a valve train issue, broken rocker arms, bent valve, you have a valve spring come apart, it wasn't installed properly, things like that, that can cause it also a poor running issue as well. So I go ahead and pull both valve covers off. I start on the driver's side, everything looked good, give everything a quick little once over, check with a light, no metal, everything was fine. Passenger side was a little bit different. Go ahead and pop that side off. I noticed cylinder number 7, the exhaust rocker arm is broken in half, and I have them over here, I'll show you in just a second. And the intake valve had been knocked off and also has some cracks in it. And we're gonna get to a couple of my suspicions here coming up soon. Once I got everything apart, I went and pulled everything out of the truck. I made sure there was no metal remaining in the head, and I basically removed the rocker arm mounts. They're 2 8mm bolts that hold them down, and those were tight. Those weren't like they were loose or anything, and pulled the push rods out, but I ran a magnet along the back corner of the head because the oil does drain through the rear of the head into the pan, but I wanted to make sure there was no metal in there, and I was able to find every piece. So this is what I found when I opened this thing up. This is the cylinder number 7. This is the exhaust rocker arm. So you can see it is broken in half. These rocker arms from the factory, number 1, these are 20 years old. I haven't changed any of these. So these are original. These actually came off my other engine. And these are strong. These are not like super weak. I forgot what type of metal or steel they are, but they're not a very weak metal or component of the valve train. I know plenty of people run these that spray past 1,000 horsepower and have had no issues with them. I know I just said I'm going to get into what I think happened, and this is just my theory. But you could see here's the intake valve. I don't know how well everybody can see that, but there is a crack here. Was this pre-existing? I don't know. And here's where things come into play. When you have stuff apart, you might as well replace things. These are from my other engine, and we'll jump over there real quick because this is why when things are apart, it's always a good idea to replace them. So this is another, I know this, but this is another learning opportunity for myself. So this is the bad bottom end. Everyone has seen this. This right here, I don't know how well everyone can see that. That little stamp there on cylinder number 8, that is from valve float. And we're going to talk about valve float in just a second and basically the direction I had to go in. So this is basically the product of a valve floating. This, I don't think necessarily was valve float. I think it looks the same way. But I think when my engine broke, the balance got thrown off and the piston was able to come up higher in the cylinder due to not having a properly attached rear counterbalance. So that would explain that. But let's talk about valve float for a second. So valve float is something that I have basically had to learn the hard way, or when you're introduced to any sort of horsepower or high horsepower applications. Essentially what it is, if you have a valve spring, and if anyone doesn't know this, I hope this is some good information for you. Those of you that have floated valves in these trucks, you know the symptoms, you know how it is and how it looks basically. It looks like that. Essentially what valve float is valve springs are kept onto the valves and any engine on the cylinder head. Valve springs are rated for a pressure, what they call seat pressure. Our engines, 7.3s, the factory valve springs are right around 72 pounds of seat pressure. It basically means it's 72 pounds of force that is keeping that valve upward drawn into the cylinder head. If I say anything wrong, as always, please correct me. I'm not one to be upset if I get corrected. I like to learn the right stuff. But as far as I know and things that I've read, 72 pounds of seat pressure is normal for these trucks. I do have upgraded valve springs. They are a Comp 910 spring that is shimmed 30 thousandths. I believe Comp Springs rates the 910s right around 94 to 96 pounds of seat pressure, so pretty considerable gain. Now, as you add shims, whether it's a 10, 20, 30, 40,000 shims, some people even double them up. The tighter you go on the shim, obviously it makes the spring tighter, increases the seat pressure. My springs were tested at 102 pounds of seat pressure. So I actually spoke with Laz from Mesa Balancing on the phone about this because this is a concern to me. He reassured me the clearance from my valve, the valves I should say, to the top of the piston when it's at top dead center, before they install the cylinder heads, he has to check for valve to piston clearance. This ensures that the valve will not hit the piston. He double checked the paperwork and I was at 120 thousandths of an inch of clearance. That's right around an eighth of an inch of clearance, which is plenty. He said that's nothing to worry about. Unfortunately, something that I had noticed, and it's not really anybody's fault, but Colt Cams on their website for the stage 2 billet cam that I'm running says it is a drop-in cam. However, you need to check valve clearance. You can't just drop something in, turn the key, and hope for the best. Some people do that, and that's fine, and sometimes things stay together, other times they do not. When it comes down to engine building, I've learned it's basically an exact science. They have to measure things and ensure that things are going to be put together properly so everything goes together and it's going to be a safe running application. So I'm at 120 thousandths. I spoke with Colt Cams. They said they recommend a minimum of 40 thousandths, which is even tighter, which I'll see if I can get my gauge out and show you guys how much tighter that is than what I have right now. So I'm at the minimum clearance. My problem is my seat pressure. The 910s shimmed that I have are right around 102 pounds of seat pressure. The new springs that I'm ordering, people have recommended them to me, and I honestly, during the whole process, I didn't want to spend any more money, so this is my fault, and I should have done it while it was apart. But you live and you learn. This is motorsports and horsepower and messing with things, and this is what you get. The new valve springs are what's called a beehive style valve spring, and the ones that I ordered offer 155 pounds of seat pressure. So a tremendously greater seat pressure, obviously, than my existing setup. Laz explained to me that the way to understand, people say, hey, how much seat pressure should I be running? He said the best way to do it is if you measure the diameter of the valve spring, multiply that by the amount of boost that you're going to be running. That will give you your minimum seat pressure that you need to pull that valve back into the cylinder head fast enough. So let's do some math real quick with everybody, just because I'm a nerd. So let's say, and this is the example he used, you have a 2.5-inch valve spring if you measure it, multiply, we'll say we're doing 50 pounds of boost. There's your seat pressure, a minimum of 125 pounds of seat pressure. If that's my existing setup, and I honestly haven't even measured that yet, so I'm gonna measure that with my caliper. That means I need to be at 125 pounds of seat pressure. That means I am already behind the 8 ball, and those cylinders are not, those valve springs are not gonna be adequate with high RPM, I guess, situations, if you will. So the way he explained it to me, because I've had the truck up to right around 40 pounds of boost pressure since it's been rebuilt. And I said, well, I've been to that boost pressure before, but it didn't float. And he said, well, that's a good point. The reason it didn't float is because when the tires spin, it reaches that level faster than it would as if you rolled into it and the torque converter's locked up and the tires aren't spinning. So it made sense. I reached that level of boost that the engine has seen before at a faster rate than it would if I was just rolling into it. Hence the reason why the valve floated. So let me get the caliper set up just to show you guys the basic clearance of what we're talking about. All right, we got our digital caliper out. I got this at Harbor Freight. I think I spent like, I don't know, maybe $9 or $10 on it. Just a super cheap electronic digital caliper here, but just to show everybody for reference. So let's go up to what Comp Cams recommends. This will be 40 thousandths of an inch. Let me get this thing tight. It's kind of finicky. I mean, this is tight. If you've never messed with any of this stuff, just to think about how tight or close this is, I mean, you're talking about literally thousandths of an inch of clearance. This is going to be a pain here. So there's 39.5. There's 40. Let's lock that in. Oop, 39.5. Come on, let's do 40, please. All right, get the idea. This is 42 thousandths of an inch of clearance. I got my phone in front of me to see. That, whoops, a little tight. Delay on the phone. That is 40 thousandths of an inch of clearance. That is tight. So they said that's an acceptable amount of clearance. This is where my truck is at the moment, and Laz has sent me a picture to show, just to prove that it is where it is. So there's 127, 126, 121. We'll do that. I'm not going to go crazy. This is where I'm at. 120 thousandths, right around there of clearance. Look how much closer that is, or how much farther away that is. This thing is ready to go. I mean, the clearance for the boost pressure is just fine. He said it's more than adequate and it even exceeds what they were even expecting. Now that everybody sees how much clearance I have between the piston and my valve, and the top of my valve, the bottom of my valve, I should say, here's my other theory. After everyone saw that, I know you guys have seen that before, how the old bottom end looked with both the valve springs, or the valves that had floated. Here's my other theory. What if the valve springs I put back on, what if they already look like this? What if they already had cracks in them? This may have happened this time, or this may have happened when the engine was apart and I didn't look close enough, because I looked at them, but maybe I didn't look close enough, and maybe the sudden increase in boost pressure caused it to break. I don't know. I have more, like I said, I have more than the adequate amount of clearance that is required for the piston to valve clearance, but maybe the rocker arms already had cracks in them. Who knows? So I ordered valve springs. My buddy Dave Beach hooked me up. He's actually sending me a tool with new rocker arms, but he sent me a valve spring tool. Sorry, I got a little setup here just to show everybody what the truck looks like under the hood. But he sent me a valve spring tool that's going to work just fine with the heads in the, or with the cylinder heads in the truck. I haven't changed valve springs in the truck before, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be that bad. I'm just going to make sure I rotate every cylinder over to top dead center. I'm going to use a kind of a makeshift feeler gauge, but we will be having a video on that so everybody can see that process if you're looking forward to doing that. But just to show everybody how the truck is sitting right now. Basically, I'm sure this looks kind of familiar, but everything is, I say everything, I just have the valve covers off basically. I didn't really want to mess with anything else, and just have everything kind of covered up here. I basically drove it home and put it in here, and once I found that, I knew the thing, I almost felt like literally, I mean, it basically was down a cylinder. Both valves were shut and it wasn't doing anything. So there's the rearmost cylinder number 7, where the carnage took place. Again, all the metal is out of there. Everything looks like it's pretty good. So it's going to be a little bit of a slow and tedious process trying to get all the valve springs apart and get the new ones on. And these new Beehive springs do come with heavy duty keepers and things like that. So we'll go over the anatomy of that once the time comes. But like I said, I got a lot of stuff coming up at the end of this week. I will be out of town on a trip. So hopefully, I think he said I'll have the tool and the rocker arms tomorrow, and I don't know when the springs will be here, even if they come Thursday. May be able to start on Thursday. I have a lot of stuff going on Thursday. I might try and do that. If not, I'll just do it when I come back on Sunday or Monday of next week. So that is basically where we're at the moment. So we have a couple other things coming up here. We got the valve springs coming in. Have another part that if everything goes well with this, I'm gonna purchase it and show everybody. Really, really cool part, and I hope it hits the market kind of hard. Hopefully even some of my videos will get the word out, but it's a super cool part, but I'm gonna keep it a surprise for right now. I think it'll be pretty awesome for our OBS guys, so very eager to get the information out about that. And I'm even thinking about doing some merchandise stuff. I don't know if anyone would be interested in that, but let me know your thoughts on that. Stickers, maybe some shirts, but initially to start with some basic stickers and stuff. So working on a couple ideas with a few people, and kind of just gonna go from there and see if we have enough popularity with it, and if I actually wanna make them and start selling those things. I know this is kind of a short video, but I want to at least get something out since my last video with the dash lights. If you have not seen how to do that, go ahead and check that out. I show you guys how to install a new LED dash light for these 94 to 97 OBS trucks. So go ahead and check that video out. Pretty cool, and I wish I could enjoy them a little bit more, but obviously I wanted to keep the thing here, didn't want to do any more damage, so it's been sitting for right around a week now. But it's all good. I've learned my lesson, and we are heading in the right direction. As always, guys, I really appreciate the love, and thank you for tuning in and supporting the channel. There will be more cool things coming up this year. I have a lot of exciting, I guess, events I'll slowly be talking about and things like that. So it'd be really cool to meet some more people out there. I've already met a couple people out at some small events locally, and people that have recognized the truck from YouTube. So it's pretty cool seeing that. So make sure you stay tuned for all the future things that will be going on with the channel and with the truck. As always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on that bell for notifications so you can see when I post a new video. That is all that I have for this one. I will be seeing everybody very soon. My name is Brandon. This is the 7-3 Garage. We will see you next time.